3:47 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz. A lone A-10C Thunderbolt 2 cuts through the darkness, skimming just 800 feet above the black water. It is loud, heavy, and moving at only 345 miles per hour. To any radar operator watching from the Iranian coast, it stands out immediately. 25 tons of titanium and combat power, flying alone into one of the most dangerous stretches of airspace in the region. It looks less like a routine flight and more like a costly miscalculation waiting to happen. 20 miles to the north, two Iranian F-14A Tomcats roll hard and slow down for the intercept. The Tomcat is a symbol of endurance, kept in service through decades of sanctions, improvisation, and reverse engineering. The lead Iranian pilot places the Warthog in the center of his display. What he sees is a slow, bulky American aircraft that seems completely out of place. He checks his weapons. A legacy AIM-54 Phoenix is powered up and ready. On paper, this should be the simplest engagement of his career, 3:53 a.m. The A-10C pilot reaches for the electronic warfare panel and switches the ALQ-131 pod to active emission. In an instant, the Warthog stops trying to stay discreet. It begins broadcasting a powerful signal meant to imitate the radar signature of a high-value, vulnerable aircraft. 30 miles away, an Iranian S-300 search radar stops its steady 360-degree sweep. The dish snaps around and locks onto the source. A concentrated tracking beam slams into the A-10's titanium frame. Inside the cockpit, the radar warning receiver erupts in a sharp burst of threat tones. But the Warthog does not dive. It does not turn away. It holds a steady 345 miles per hour at 800 feet. This is the heart of an indirect suppression of enemy air defense's mission. The A-10C Thunderbolt 2 is acting like a digital magnet. Beneath the fuselage, the GAU-8 Avenger cannon stays silent, while the ALQ-131 pod keeps pressing the electronic fight, forcing every concealed surface-to-air missile site along the strait to expose its exact operating frequency. On the coast near Bandar Abbas, missile crews begin moving their launchers into position. Hydraulic systems whine as they track what appears to be an easy American target. They think they are preparing to strike. In reality, they are giving away their location. Every radar pulse is captured, time-stamped, and passed through Link 16 to high-altitude command and control aircraft. The Warthog pilot watches his display as 3 more coastal batteries come alive, their invisible energy pouring toward his aircraft. The Iranian response is already accelerating on the runway at Bandar Abbas. Twin TF-30 engines surge to full military power. 2 F-14A Tomcat interceptors release their brakes and surge down the runway. In just 4,000 feet, they lift off and climb almost straight into the night sky. Their pilots push the throttles into full afterburner, and 4 blazing exhaust trails cut through the salty air as the jets pass 15,000 feet. The Tomcat's variable sweep wings slide back to their 68-degree delta setting, and the acceleration comes fast. 800 miles per hour, 1,100 miles per hour, 1,400 miles per hour. They are closing on the Warthog at more than 4 times its speed. In the lead Tomcat, the AWG-9 radar comes alive and fixes a powerful beam on the A-10. On the head-up display, the target box settles firmly around the Warthog. The pilot aligns the steering cue and flips open the trigger guard on the stick. Beneath the fuselage, an AIM-54 Phoenix comes online. Its internal gyros spin up to 20,000 revolutions per minute. Its power source activates. The seeker locks onto the heat coming off the A-10's twin TF-34 turbofans. The 2 interceptors tighten into a pincer approach, pulling 6 Gs as they roll into the final phase of the attack. Their tracking solution is solid. The gap collapses fast. 20 miles, 15, 10. The space between the aircraft and their target feels moments away from breaking into chaos. The Iranian pilots are locked in on the engagement. Their attention narrows to the steady lock tone in their headsets, and in that focus, they miss the empty-looking sky 25,000 feet above them. But before the moment everything changed, it is worth recognizing the people who make missions like this possible. Patrolling the Strait of Hormuz is never only about the pilots in the cockpit. It also rests on the shoulders of the maintainers working under floodlights at 2 a.m. and on the families back home in places like Tucson or Norfolk, waiting for the call that says everything is fine. For the veterans watching who served on these ships or kept these aircraft flying, that quiet tension before everything starts is unforgettable. If you spent time on a carrier deck or at a desert air base, share what that silence felt like before the pressure hit. While the Iranian interceptors race toward what they believe is a straightforward engagement, they are already being tracked by eyes they cannot detect. 4 miles above the salt spray and Gulf humidity, 2 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters hold a silent orbit. They have been on station for exactly 41 minutes. And the F-35B does not fight the way older aircraft did. They are flying in complete electromagnetic silence, relying on the AN/AAQ 37 Distributed Aperture System, or DAS, to absorb everything around them. In the darkness at 3:55 a.m., the Iranian F-14A Tomcats stand out like white-hot flares against the black sky. The F-35s can see the heat building along the Tomcats' leading edges. Below, the setup is reaching its critical moment. The lead Iranian fighter closes to 20 miles and keeps a steady radar lock on the A-10C Thunderbolt II. Then a huge AIM-54 Phoenix drops from beneath the Tomcat. For a split second, it falls silently through the night, a 1,000-pound cylinder of metal and destructive force. Then the rocket motor ignites. In seconds, the Phoenix is racing past 3,000 miles per hour. The energy behind it is enormous. If it reaches the A-10, the result will be catastrophic. But the American pilot does not react. The Warthog keeps flying the same steady course at 345 miles per hour. To Iranian sensors, it looks like a pilot who has no way out. The missile climbs into a high arc, preparing to come down at extreme speed on the seemingly exposed aircraft. The numbers are simple. The missile is moving 10 times faster than the plane. 12 seconds remain. 10, 9, 8. Then, in a fraction of a moment, the unseen aircraft at 40,000 feet change everything. The electronic picture over the Strait of Hormuz is completely rewritten. The two F-35B Lightning IIs switch on their AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned array radars. Each jet directs a focused beam of energy at the Iranian F-14S. The lead Tomcat tries to hold its lock on the A-10 and continue guiding the Phoenix, but the F-35S begin digital radio frequency memory jamming. They capture the Iranian radar pulses, alter them, and send them back into the Tomcat's own fire control system. Suddenly, the A-10 seems to exist in 10 places at once. Then it vanishes from the picture altogether. The AIM-54 immediately loses coherence. Without guidance from the Tomcat, its onboard system can no longer hold a valid track. It continues diving at high speed, but it is no longer chasing a real target. The Iranian fighters brake hard, trying to evade threats they still cannot identify. Their eyes stay locked on their radar screens, but the displays are now flooded with static, phantom returns, and false contacts. They are reacting to echoes and illusions. From the internal weapons bay of the lead F-35, an AIM-120D AMRAAM is launched. The missile drops clear, its motor ignites, and it surges forward. The F-35 continues feeding it mid-course updates through a data link, guiding it with precision. The second Iranian aircraft is the first to be taken out. The AIM-120D is traveling at roughly 3,000 miles per hour. As it closes to within 30 feet of the wingman, its proximity fuse triggers the warhead. In the darkness, a sudden orange fireball tears across the sky. The Tomcat's airframe, built to handle 7 Gs in a hard maneuver, cannot absorb the shock of a modern missile impact. The wing gives way. The fuselage twists. In seconds, the aircraft falls into a flat, unrecoverable spin, trailing a long ribbon of fire as it drops toward the dark water below. Now the lead Iranian fighter is on its own. The pilot pushes the engines to the edge, feeding raw fuel into the afterburners and forcing the jet toward its top speed of 1,500 miles per hour. Desperate to make it back to the protection of the Iranian coast, the surviving F-14A Tomcat crosses the maritime boundary at full speed. Ahead, the pilot can already see the lights of Bandar Abbas. Beyond them is safety, where Iranian S-300 missile batteries are standing by to shield their own airspace. But the two F-35B Lightning IIs do not break off. They remain exactly 12 miles behind him, silent, unseen, and completely in control. And this is where the real purpose of the mission becomes clear. The A-10C Thunderbolt II was never just there to draw an interceptor into a fight. While the Iranian pilot raced for home, his aircraft was broadcasting a huge radar signature. Across multiple frequencies, he was calling for support. In response, the entire Iranian air defense network came alive to protect him. The A-10C was carrying a specialized electronic intelligence pod, and every signal mattered. Each time an Iranian S-300 radar activated to search for the F-35s, and each time command centers transmitted encrypted instructions to the surviving pilot, the Warthog was collecting it. The A-10 was not simply flying through the battle space, it was harvesting the entire electronic picture. The American objective was never limited to bringing down one F-14. What they wanted was a detailed map of the Iranian coastal defense system. By sending in a slow, heavy legacy aircraft as the visible target, they forced Iran to reveal the locations, frequencies, timing, and coordination of its own network. The surviving Iranian pilot lands hard, hands shaking, convinced he made it through an encounter with stealth fighters. What he does not realize is that by running back to base, he has effectively guided the Americans straight to the very shelters and facilities he is taxiing toward. Out over the water, the A-10C Thunderbolt II makes a slow, easy bank. Its role in the operation is finished. As the first light of sunrise begins to edge over the horizon, the 3 American aircraft, the 2 Silent Hunters and the heavy Iron Workhorse, form up in a tight V and turn back toward the carrier. Behind them, the Strait of Hormuz fades into the morning haze, and left behind is an opponent still trying to understand what just happened, still focused on speed and firepower, while the real battle was won in the invisible space of signals, timing, and control. The Americans understand the real lesson. Once one side can see the entire battlefield, the outcome is already being shaped long before anyone else realizes it. At 4:12 a.m., just as the surviving Tomcat's engines finally wind down on the tarmac, at Bandar Abbas, Iranian Sector Command faces one last disturbing anomaly. A signal suddenly appears on their main air defense screens. For exactly 5 seconds, the F-35s briefly abandon their invisibility. Using their AN/APG-81 radars, they inject a digital image directly onto the Iranian displays. It sends a chilling message without a single spoken word. "We were here the whole time. We saw everything, and we always had the advantage." Then, just as suddenly, the signal is gone. Iranian radar operators scramble to make sense of it. They reboot systems, search for equipment faults, and even consider natural interference, but nothing explains what they just saw. Within moments, the sky looks empty again. High above, the 2 F-35B Lightning IIs bank westward in a calm, controlled turn. Their visible part in the mission is over, but the real pressure is still unfolding in the digital battlespace. As they leave the area, they also leave behind a subtle, delayed action intrusion in the Iranian communications network, one that will cause radar scopes to display phantom contacts for the next 72 hours. Out over the dark Gulf waters, the A-10C Thunderbolt II pilot finally breaks radio silence. "Bigfoot, this is Hog 1. The barn is mapped, heading home." From the carrier comes only a single, calm click of the microphone. No cheers, no praise, no dramatic reaction, just the quiet professionalism of a force that expected this result from the start. The Strait of Hormuz falls silent again. In the months ahead, the Iranian Air Force will study the loss of that Tomcat, trying to understand how a 1970s-era attack aircraft and 2 stealth fighters turned the balance in less than 5 minutes. For the veterans watching, whether you flew these aircraft or stood watch in a radar room at sea, you already know the lesson. The easiest-looking target is often the most dangerous one. And when the other side seems to be making a mistake, that is usually the moment to look twice. Stay sharp, stay ready, and remember, if you can see us, it may be because we chose to be seen. This video is a dramatized retelling inspired by real-world military capabilities and regional tensions. Some scenes are hypothetical and should not be treated as a literal record of actual events. Dialogue, reactions, and emotional details are fictionalized for storytelling purposes and based on publicly available information. Thank you.